We continue on the issue of how the U.S. deals with immigration. This is Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman. The network of ICE jails across the United States is vast. As we turn from New Mexico to Georgia, where immigrants held at the Irwin County Detention Center were held in solitary confinement after they protested their conditions during the first months of the coronavirus pandemic. Their fight, the focus of a new documentary called The Facility. This is the trailer.
We're asking for these petitioners to be released.
I've already ruled on that, and I haven't heard anything to change my mind.
How's everybody doing? What's happening here?
Somebody here says the problem with coronavirus.
I'm really scared I'm gonna die.
This is what we came up with to try to protect ourselves.
The woman, they're going to go on strike.
Detained immigrant women are in utter despair.
We are recording this video in fear.
I have to speak out.
She described the experience here as torture.
They hit me. Can you see?
Can you just keep it running?
I think we're all beating them in the hole. They'll put us all in the hole.
What have you heard?
They isolated them all.
The facility is going to continue addressing issues as they arise. What that entails, I have no idea.
The Facility is directed by journalist Seth Freed Wessler, who began investigating the story last year. This was 6 months before a whistleblower, a nurse working at the Irwin ICE jail, said women held there were being subjected to forced sterilization. At the start of the pandemic, Seth connected with people inside the jail by talking to them through video calls that he recorded. This is a clip.
How's everybody doing? How are you thinking about what's happening out here, this coronavirus thing?
Everybody is here under a lot of stress. We see what's happening outside, how fast it's been moving. Once it gets in here, we all complete risk.
Our safety here is not up to us. It's up to third parties, and these third parties lie to us.
The guards, they only wear their face masks on Monday, and now they don't even have it on at all. As you see, she's going up there, checking through every room.
They are not practicing it, which is the social distance, the 6 feet. With 32 people in here, there's no way we're going to practice that.
I made this myself with a sock to cover my face because I refused to run the risk.
In that clip, you hear Seth Freed Wessler talking to Andrea Manrique and Nilson Barahona. In a minute, Seth and Nilson will join us. But first, this is one more clip from The Facility, where Seth is talking to Nilson just as a guard comes in, and Nilson confronts him. Listen carefully.
If you can call me after the break.
Can you just keep it running?
There is nobody infected in this facility.
Okay, let me tell you something. My name is Nilson Barahona. I put a lawsuit, okay, to this facility. Both of the warrants were in a federal court on Thursday, and they declared that they have tested 3 people and 1 came positive.
The people responsible are nowhere to be found. They're all sitting at home somewhere, barking orders, telling people like what to say to you. It's a up situation, it really is. The facility is going to continue addressing issues as they arise. What that entails, I have no idea. Okay?
Well, for more, we're joined by Nilson Barahona, one of the 2 people featured in The Facility. Originally from Honduras, he has lived in the United States since 1999, since been released from Irwin, helped found the group called Icebreakers. Also with us, Seth Freed Wessler, who was a longtime reporting fellow with Type Investigations when he directed this new documentary produced by Field Division, based in part on his reporting for the New York Times Magazine and HuffPost, now a reporter with ProPublica. Seth, this film is about to come out on MSNBC, I believe. Can you talk about how you did these remarkable videos? And then we'll talk with Nilson about being at the other end.
Yeah, when the pandemic really began to sort of turn the world upside down, I, as a reporter, decided I wanted to try to connect with people inside of the detention centers, the ICE detention centers that I'd already been reporting on. I'd reported on ICE for many years. And so I began to make calls using this pay-per-minute video visitation app that's installed in cell blocks in many detention centers around the country. I knew about the app already because I'd used it to talk to people before the pandemic as I was reporting on ICE. And so I began to make calls to people detained inside of the Irwin County Detention Center to try to figure out what was happening as the pandemic was spreading in this very tightly packed place. And did report a series of stories for the web and for the New York Times Magazine about conditions of confinement, about the failure of ICE and private detention operators to protect people from the spreading virus. But it struck me very early that what I was seeing through these cameras that are attached to tablets inside of the cell blocks, really, I couldn't communicate what I was seeing through print reporting, that this needed to be a story that people could experience visually. And so I embarked on this film project to pull together what ultimately was hundreds of hours of footage that included conversations, interviews with Nilson and Andrea Manrique and many other people held in Irwin, but also at times just footage of life happening inside. I would sometimes spend many hours a day calling, and then people on the inside, including Nilson, would pick up my calls. And at times I'd ask, and we just saw a clip of this, if we could just keep the camera running, and I would keep recording the footage. And over time, that practice of just being sort of digitally present made it possible to be present for real things happening inside, events like the one you just saw, and also just sort of to get a sense of the routine daily life inside of this detention center. So the facility, which will come out on MSNBC on Sunday night at 10 p.m., but it's also now available at Field of Vision's website, tells the story of a group of people inside of the Irwin County Detention Center trying to raise their voices to hold the Irwin County Detention Center accountable, but also, I hope, can bring people who see it, in a sense, inside. In a sense, for me, and I think for Nilson and others I talked to, this camera, not so unlike what we're doing right now, between the detention center, streaming onto my computer screen and then streaming back into these tablets in the inside of the facility, functioned almost like a portal for a moment in and out of a place meant not to be seen in this way.
I mean, it is just an astounding documentary with this first-hand video footage. Even when you're not talking directly to someone, as you point out, you say, leave the camera on, and you hear the guards talking who admit they have no idea what's going on. Nilson Barahona, you're there at the other end, and we feel you in this documentary, the fear and trying to get an honest answer about if people have COVID at the height of the pandemic and how you can protect yourself. Can you talk about that fear and what they did at Irwin? Now you're out, probably because of, among other things, your resistance and the nurse who came forward and talked about the abominable conditions and the fact that women were being sterilized against their will there.
Yeah, it was definitely a very frightening time. It was in order for me to fight this fight, and I have said this many times, I had to block my emotions because what we was living at that time, it was overwhelming, and it was easy to freeze and not to do anything. But I'm a man of faith, and I give thanks to God that I was able to connect with Seth and Diego Sanchez and Laura Lay, my lawyers at that time. They were great help. They were shining the light every step I take, and I'm grateful that this documentary came out because there is no words that can explain what we went through at that time.
And talk about what it meant to demand answers about how you could be protected during COVID. I mean, you see Andrea, the other woman in detention who gets punished for resisting and going on hunger strike, and the agony she goes through in this facility for almost 2 years. You were on hunger strike as well, Nilson.
Yeah, it was a decision that it wasn't really easy to make, and also the fact that we were all able to do this together as a family. I would say there's no other way to say it, because we knew that all we had, it was next to us. Everything that we have that we can use to fight, it was next to us, and it was each other. That was basically it. So we got to come together, and we got to raise our voice in order to get the attention that we needed to get to solve that problem.
I mean, when you describe, as you're talking to Seth on this video call, about your son and what he said to you as you spoke to him in Spanish, you're inside, he's out, you're married, he's an American citizen, he's a tiny boy. But the little bond that you had and what you felt was being disrupted.
It's still hard to this point to think about it. Thanks God, I'm able to say right now that bond is stronger than ever. My boy, he's 7 years old at this time, but his courage and his character is so strong, and I'm proud of him, But the truth is that it should have never happened. I should have never been taken away from him. He was 5 years old at the time when I got detained. And during the months went by, as the months went by, and I tried to keep that relationship, going, but we were limited, in the kind of communication that we could have. And since he was born, I only speak Spanish to him. So this is me. This is our thing, My wife is a United States citizen. She's from Connecticut, and so she speaks a little Spanish, but not much. So I try to make sure that he knows his background, where he's coming from, and all our culture and all that. And I felt like I was losing that, with him. And I felt so impotent, there was nothing I could do at that time. But what hurt me is the fact that how come your own government can be doing this to you, Like my wife went through so much. Like when I came out, she was financially, emotionally, physically drained, because all the things that we were supposed to do and take care as a couple, she would have to do it on her own. And not only that, but now she had an extra care of having her husband in detention.
And as you ask, and as Andrea asked, when you're just released, after how long were you in Irwin?
13 months.
13 months, and
Irwin,
2 years.
I was in Irwin for like 7 months, and then after the hunger strike, I was moved to a Stewart Detention Center.
You were moved to
not
Stewart.
Better at all.
And saying, why couldn't you be at home as you went through the process? Andrea, they're breaking her. And in these last few seconds, Seth, the agony we watch Andrea, who had been put in the hole, who had gone on hunger strike, saying, after they released her, why couldn't she have been waiting for her court date all this time from home?
ICE detention is in many ways unique in the complex of ways that we lock people up in the United States, in that it is routinely the case that people don't know how long they will be held. They don't know when they will be released. People can be held for many months and sometimes multiple years. And this is a detention system that is at the discretion of ICE. ICE can decide to hold people or not. Everybody who's in ICE detention could be released and allowed to be home with their families, and that's a decision that the government makes